completed. That 11% is all what we say is on-campus development. So it's within the fence of that 120-acre park or that 50-acre park. And we say that that is the lowest risk type of development. In my experience of 25 plus years on 3 continents, I believe that that's the lowest risk type of development that you can have, because you own the land, you've been there for a number of years, often more than a decade, you have the approvals for the master plan and the buildings in place, you're ready to go on that. You've delivered millions of square feet over the past few years, so that risk is understood and low. And you're surrounded by tenant demand within your parks, those 160 tenants. So we're not coming out and saying this 11% is blue sky development, greenfield, somewhere out in the boonies. This is in established business parks, and that comes as part of this REIT portfolio. We talk in the portfolio, in the prospectus, about our growth in NOI, our net operating income. You can see we're growing by more than 50% over these 3 years. So that's growth, and growth in distributions that comes to our investors. It comes from that contracted growth that we've spoken about. It comes from when we lease up new buildings like Embassy One that I told you we recently completed. It comes from that mark to market. So that multiplier, which is growing at approximately 15% every year for these 3 years. Now beyond that, so beyond this, on day one we would be the largest office REIT in Asia, but beyond that growth we have the potential to acquire either from Embassy sponsor, from whom we have a right of first offer, not an obligation to buy, and there's a process that we're happy to take in the Q&A around the regulations around how we deal with pricing and related parties on that. But that has the potential to add another 40 plus million square feet to the portfolio. So your 25 comes 33 with your in-campus development, and over a number of years you've got the potential to grow by another 40 million square feet. In addition to that, we have the opportunity to go out to the market and look for acquisitions that we can buy either by increasing our debt, or we can swap that for units in the trust. So on listing, we deliberately have a very low debt to GAV ratio, sub 15%, and part of the reason around that is to give us the headroom for those acquisitions. I'll just flag on this the NOI growth over these 3 years. You can see that growth going to 58% over those 3 years. So that's approximately 15 to 16% compounding, and that finds its way directly into the distributions to our unit holders. All of this is managed by an independent management team. You see Vikash, my colleague on the dais, you see Sachin, our head of leasing, our CFO Ritik, but there are 60 people in that team I mentioned doing the A to Z of our business. And this is really what our business is, leasing. You see the quantum that we've done, 6.8 million square feet over the last 3.5 years. 3 years, 9 months of leasing. We've renewed 7.7. That's over 14 million square feet of transactions over that period that we've taken into account. That's 7% growth in rentals, that 48% leasing spread. We've delivered over 4 million square feet in the park, upgrades, tenant initiatives, and so on. Governance framework, I think we're happy to go through this in the Q&A, but as I said, Sebi has done a great job on governance. We've got 50% independent directors on our board. We'll show you those in a second. The manager needs to perform. Unrelated unit holders are able to hold that manager accountable. And another point that we'd make is that there's absolute alignment both from the manager in our fee structure, which we're happy to talk about, but also from the sponsors who, post-listing, will continue to own more than 70% of the REIT. We've talked about the 80-20 development rule and that we're 89-11. We've talked about one of the key attractions of a REIT, 90% distribution to unit holders. We're endeavouring to take that further. Instead of being 6 monthly, we're looking to do that quarterly, and we're looking to get that number as close to 100% as is reasonable. We've spoken about our debt, and we're happy to go through related party safeguards. These are our directors and independent directors, representing both embassy sponsor Jitu and Aditya Virwani, and also Blackstone. Chris Heddy, the head of Blackstone Real Estate in Asia, sits in Hong Kong. Tuin Parekh, who sits in Express Towers here, but also these eminent independent directors who are there to ensure that all unit holders' interests are taken care of. So Vivek heads the Audit Committee, Anuj Puri, who many of you will know, and he will head the Investment Committee, which will be responsible for acquisitions and dispositions. Dr. Sinha, who's an independent director of, among other companies, Infosys, she will head the Stakeholder Committee, and Dr. Ranjan Pai heading Remuneration Committee. So, from day one, we've intended to create a platform and a governance which is truly world-class, with these two eminent sponsors, Embassy and Blackstone, bringing this together in the REIT, in the market today. So there's a lot of detail